Part 1. The Plateau Problem. Somewhere in the world right now, someone is opening an English textbook for the 1000th time. They have studied grammar rules for years. They know hundreds of vocabulary words, and yet when they try to speak, the words don't come. If this sounds familiar, you are not alone. And more importantly, it is not your fault. Most people are taught that learning English means memorizing more rules and more words. So when their English stops improving, they assume the answer is simple. Study harder, learn more words, review more grammar. But here is the uncomfortable truth. Many learners who reach this point are not missing knowledge. They are missing a system, and no amount of memorization can fix a broken system. In the next 19 minutes, we are going to look at why this plateau happens, what language research actually says about how fluency is built, and a practical routine you can start today. Not a list of random tips, a real explanation of what works and why. Part 2. Why traditional study fails. Here is a question worth sitting with. How did you learn your first language? You didn't start with grammar books. Nobody sat you down at age 2 and explained the past tense. You learned by hearing language over and over in situations where you could understand what was happening even before you understood every word. Language researchers have studied this pattern for decades. One of the most influential ideas in this field is the theory that people acquire language best when they receive input, things they read or hear, that is just slightly above their current level. Understandable, but still a small stretch. Not so easy that nothing is learned. Not so hard that it becomes noise. This idea is still debated among linguists, and no single theory explains everything about how we learn language. But one pattern shows up again and again in the research. Understanding real, meaningful language builds fluency more effectively than memorizing isolated rules. This is why someone can score highly on a grammar test and still freeze during a real conversation. Grammar knowledge and language fluency are related, but they are not the same skill. So what does this mean practically? It means your first priority should not be how many new words can I memorize today. It should be how much English can I understand today, at a level that challenges me without overwhelming me. Reading graded content, listening to podcasts made for learners, watching shows with subtitles in English, not your native language. These aren't shortcuts. They are the foundation everything else is built on, but input alone is not enough, and this is where most advice online stops, right before the part that actually creates fluency. Part 3. The missing half. Speaking and output. Here is something researchers have observed. People who only listen and read tend to understand a lot of English, but still struggle to produce it. There's a reason for this. Understanding language and producing language use different mental processes. You can recognize a word instantly while reading, yet still hesitate for several seconds trying to say it yourself. This is where output, speaking and writing, becomes essential. Not because it magically teaches new grammar, but because it does something input can't. It shows you exactly where your gaps are when you try to say a sentence and can't quite find the words. That moment is valuable. It tells you precisely what to work on next. Linguists call this noticing the gap, and it's one of the clearest ways to turn passive knowledge into active ability. This is also why so many learners feel stuck despite years of study. They've built a large library of understood English, but they've rarely practiced producing it under real conditions. The good news is that you don't need a classroom or a native-speaking partner to start. A few effective methods: shadowing, listening to a short clip of natural English and repeating it out loud, matching the rhythm and pronunciation as closely as possible. Self-talk, narrating your day in English, out loud or in your head, even in simple sentences. I am making coffee. It is a little cold today. Low-stakes conversation practice, language exchange apps, or even talking to yourself in front of a mirror. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is repetition without fear. Most learners avoid speaking because they're afraid of making mistakes. But mistakes are not a sign of failure. They're the feedback signal your brain needs to improve. Every fluent speaker you've ever admired made thousands of them on the way there. Part 4. Building your personal system. Understanding the science is one thing. Turning it into a daily habit is where most people struggle. Here's the core idea. Consistency beats intensity. 20 focused minutes a day will do more for your English than a single 4-hour session once a week. This isn't just intuition. It reflects a well-documented pattern in learning psychology, where spaced, repeated practice leads to stronger long-term retention than cramming. A simple, sustainable system might look like this. Input block. 10 to 15 minutes of reading or listening to something slightly above your comfort level. Graded stories, podcasts for learners, or short videos with subtitles. Output block, 5 to 10 minutes of speaking practice. Shadowing, self-talk, or a short conversation. Review block, a few minutes reviewing new words you noticed, ideally using spaced repetition, reviewing them again after 1 day, then 3 days, then a week. This spacing is far more effective for memory than reviewing the same list every single day. Notice what's missing from this system. Hours of grammar drilling. Grammar still matters, but it works best as a support tool, something you check when you notice a pattern you don't understand, not as the main event. One more piece worth mentioning: track your input, not your perfection. Instead of asking, "Did I get everything right today?" ask, "Did I understand and produce a little more English than yesterday?" That question keeps you moving forward, without the discouragement that stops so many learners. Part 5. The 19-minute takeaway. Let's bring this together. Your English plateau isn't a sign that you're not capable. It's usually a sign that your method has been incomplete, heavy on rules, light on real understanding and real practice. The fix isn't more willpower. It's a better system. Understandable input that stretches you slightly, regular output that reveals your gaps, and short, consistent sessions that compound over time. You don't need to change everything today. Pick one input source and one output habit. Start with 10 minutes. Let consistency do the rest. If this explanation helped you see your English learning differently, consider subscribing. This channel builds practical, research-informed lessons like this one every week, designed to help you actually use the English you're learning.